Months ago, I had a big sewing fail. I made the Sirocco jumpsuit from Dirndl and I could not wear it. Well, it's wearable now. I have 2 garments to show you and a pattern mashup, so keep watching. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina. This is Lifting Pins and Needles, a channel all about sewing, limitless sewing. Welcome back. If you are constantly stopping by when you get your notification that there's a new video, I thank you so much for that. If you haven't yet subscribed, please consider doing that by tapping on that little red thing there on the screen. And also tap on that bell so you get notified when there's a new video and you can gain a different perspective that could help your sewing. Months ago, I had a big sewing fail. Fail in the fact that I couldn't wear it. The style did not suit me, I didn't feel comfortable, and the pattern that I used was a super popular pattern, the Sirocco Jumpsuit by Dirndl Patterns. At the time, I was quite nervous to post that review because it wasn't that positive, when actually my review was very well received. Lots of engagement in the comments section. Some of you agreed that the style really didn't work for me. Others said I look great, you know. The truth of the matter is that I was not going to wear it. I wasn't going to wear it, and at the end of the video, I hinted I might turn it into a dress if I could, and just make something wearable. I will go to great lengths to turn a garment into something wearable. I am not the one to just give up and just say it's a fail. I love the fabric, I love the color, I want a red dress. So I have turned the Sirocco jumpsuit into a dress, and I'm showing you how I did that now. You're seeing the front of the Sirocco jumpsuit. So there's those infamous pleats. And what I've done, well, basically that is how the front crotch would look. I have unsewn the crotch seam sort of like 2 inches below the top there, because I'm going to keep that there. And I have undone the inseams on the front and the back. And so just trying it on myself, I pinned this out into a straight thing so I can just have a skirt on the front without the pant there. This is the back of the jumpsuit. Here you can see the back darts of the trousers, and here you can see where the seam starts for the back crotch curve. Well, what I'm going to do is remove that serge there, serging. I'm going to unstitch here so that this seam can be pressed open like I have on the front. I think it presses better open and reduces the bulk. And I'm going to do that to the back. Here you can see I've done the same thing. I've taken apart this seam, the crotch there. I've taken out the inseam and then just pinned where this is going to fit well on my shape. So just a straight seam there. And because I have some excess here at the bottom, I think I'm going to do a kick pleat on the back as a feature. Just because I have the excess fabric there, I can use to do that. I've tidied up the front part of the dress. Now you see all the pant bits there are gone, and it's just one straight seam that has been pressed open, serged. This is the top of the back. As I said, I was going to undo part of this area there, undo the serge, the zigzag stitch, so that I could open this seam up, same as it is in the front. So now I have sewn this. I have actually done the stitching there, but I still have the flappy excess, and I get to this bottom part there. Here is my Sirocco dress, because the bodice stays unchanged. You saw the changes I made to adapt the front crotch pieces, front and back, to just have a straight seam. I did that by fitting it onto myself and pinning it onto myself so that I knew that the skirt was going to fit. You saw how I did that. It was very fast, very easy. I even used the original hem. Like, I had the fold already pressed for the hem, so that even was easy. I have hand hemmed as I had done with the jumpsuit. On the back, you know, I went through some trouble of undoing a certain area there so that that middle seam could be pressed open and lay flat. I think just being serged together was really bulky. I did this little kick pleat at the bottom there as a detail. I had the seam allowance there, so I couldn't help myself but do a little, you know, special something on the back. Had I not had the seam allowance, I would have just done a straight seam. Or if I wanted to be like less creative, I would have just done an open slit, like a normal one. But I think this looks really nice. There's mitered corner right there. This is the side that had I drafted this specifically, like from fabric, I would have made this extension, this seam allowance on this side longer, like double the amount, so that I could have folded that under and have a neat finish. Because I was working with the fabric I had, that's why there's bias binding there. Here is my red Sirocco dress. You can see those pleats there. I'm still not 100% comfortable with them. I think they enhance your abdomen in some manner. And yeah, but it's wearable. I will wear it. I'm much happier with this as a dress. And I get to save this bodice that I love the fit. I'm just not a fan of these pleats that are on an angle like that, as you can see. Is this a style I would actually replicate and think, oh, I want slanted pleats on the front of my dresses or my pants? No, certainly not. You know, I can't modify these pleats now because the front pieces are drafted in a way and those darts are trued in a way that you can't just modify them. You know, I'm not against vertical pleats, maybe deeper pleats, although I'm not a pleat lover unless it's like a really nice full skirt, you know. But it's wearable. I am not confident to go out into the street just in my dress because it's super figure hugging. It just shows off all the curves and I am not that sort of person that will just go out there like that. But totally wearable. I have a long black duster that I made last year. I also have another duster that is chiffon with red and black. Those will go perfect with this dress, as will a blazer or like a sleeveless something or a cardigan. Layering, friends, layering is the way to go with such a figure hugging dress. Otherwise, I am happy to have a wearable piece. I don't have to stare at that item of clothing in my wardrobe and think, oh, what a waste of my time, you know. I have a garment now and I'm happy about that. Now, I love the bodice. I always love the bodice. Originally, I made some changes to have more cover here on the crossover. When I made the muslin, it was just a bit too much cleavage for me, for my liking. So making those adjustments, I think the bodice is really nice. I always knew I wanted to use it as a bodice and then attach on a different skirt. About a month ago, I received a fabric from Minerva.com. Every now and then I receive fabric from them in exchange for making a garment and writing a blog post for their website. And I am also at liberty to share it here on the channel as well. So that's what I'm doing. Beautiful, beautiful Lady McElroy Ponte knit in a border print with stripes on one extreme and like splashes of paint in tones of black, grey and white. The thing is, when it got here, I kept looking at it for weeks thinking, what am I going to sew? Like, what am I going to make? And it's got to do with the way the print is on the fabric. But inspiration hit when it did, and because I had the Sirocco jumpsuit in the back of my mind, I suddenly knew what I had to do. It was a super fun process, and even more so because I got to use the new camera with the tripod extension so that I was able to get vertical shots. As you're seeing there, made it easier. I got up to some arts and crafts, and I think you're gonna find it super fun. So let's hop into that.
This is starting to wear on me. You've been rated down like hell. I'm weak. I have tried to give you my...
I wanted to show you how this fabric is. This is Ponte and it's a border print, so it has a different design on each side like that. But the thing is, this is the selvage. That is the selvage over there. So the greatest stretch of the fabric goes across, you know. So if I wanted to do a design and have all this on the hem, I would have to cut the pattern pieces on the cross grain, and that would mean I would have basically no stretch. So I'm gonna play with this design. I'm not gonna do that thing about having the hem there because I don't really care. I think I can make it work as it is like this. When you fold it, it looks like that. And that's the other side. So I'm gonna have a good play, a good, fun figuring out how this is gonna look interesting, but always cutting my pattern pieces on the grain line to have the greatest stretch going horizontal across my body like Ponte should. This is the Sirocco line drawings that I've shown you before, so I just want to use the bodice. I'm not going to use the sleeves, and actually I want to cross the bodice to the other side. So I've drawn an image on another page so you can see how I'm actually going to do it. So you can see that crosses this way and I want it to cross the other way. It's exactly the same thing. It's not going to affect fit or anything, but visually I want it like that. And it's got to do with the print of the fabric. So the Sirocco has a waistband there, and that is what I'm going to use to match the skirt of the Olympia dress. So the Olympia dress has a center fold, and there are two lines that you use to cut your back piece and your front. So for the back piece, you have to fold it in a little bit. It's a tad narrower, and that matches exactly the Sirocco jumpsuit bodice because the back is a tad narrower as well. When measuring these pattern pieces, I measured from there to there and measured the top from the point to the center and multiplied by 2. These patterns match exactly. So what I'm doing here is a 48 waist on the Sirocco. So a 46 bust to a 48 inch waist. And I'm using a size large skirt from the Olympia. So super handy, they match perfect. For the back, I'm just cutting it on the fold. And just pretend this is the back. It's just going to be a back. The main interest will be on the front. I want this to be a fake wrap skirt. So from there, I want the layer that goes on top of the skirt to reach right under where that wrap is, right there. So you can see that from the center of the skirt, I need to extend the pattern piece by an amount. I'm not going to use that many measurements because this is relative to the size I'm making. But it's basically just measuring where it reaches and how much you need to add. Here you can see another piece of paper where I've made a new pattern piece. So that is my front pattern piece. It's supposed to be on the fold. So I have a line there that marks the center front, and I've extended it, in my case, 10.5 centimeters. That is 4.25 inches. And that includes 1 inch extra there that I can fold under. Now I want to trim this, but I want to true this curve. You can see that the skirt is not a straight line on the top, and that's because it follows our shape. So when I want to cut this extended piece, I want it to follow that shape. That is why I've got the paper folded. So I'm just going to fold it there. Okay, now that I've cut it, you can see that that follows that shape. And now I can just get rid of this excess paper. There. And this is one that's already done. This is the one that's going to go on the front, the visible one. Now for the skirt piece that goes underneath the other one, I have got my pattern piece. There are pockets there, but I always ignore those. I have also placed that there, drawn the center line, and this one I need to extend even further. So the other one you saw I extended 4.25 inches. This one I'm extending 8 inches, and that is also including 1 inch there to fold under. I am also going to true out that curve there, as you saw me do with the smaller one, the one I added less extension to. So I'm just going to fold there on that center. So I've cut that and see that shape that it forms. Now I can trim excess paper away, and I will have my two pattern pieces. So these center fronts there will match each other. This one will overlap there. And that little inch there that you can see will be folded back, so you can finish that part of the skirt, same as the one inside. Okay, and how is this going to look on the bodice? So we have this one that almost reaches the side seam. It doesn't really reach it the whole way. I don't want it to. I think it'll be too bulky, but it'll give good coverage. And then we have the other skirt piece that will go on top like that. And that is how I've drafted the 2 front pieces for the dress. The back is just the same, you just cut it on the fold as per usual. Now, how is this going to look on the fabric? This is how you see the fabric when it's fully extended. So you have these borders there out of stripes, but actually the stretch of the Ponte is going this way. This is how it's going to stretch. If I wanted to place pattern pieces like this to have these features be on the hem, I would lose all the stretch and all the core features of this Ponte. I measured the stretch, it has about 50 to 60%, and that is what you actually need for the bodice of the Sirocco because there's no closures. You just have to wiggle in through that waistband that has quite a lot of negative ease. So even though visually I think this is super attractive to have this on the hem, I'm just going to cut my pattern pieces as normal and just cut them and find ways to make it visually interesting while keeping the stretch horizontally. Vertically, there is a little bit of stretch, but the greatest stretch goes across, like a knit would, you know. Because I want to play with the visual part of this dress with this fabric that is so interesting in the print, I'm cutting every single pattern piece, single layer. So the fabric has darker areas on the sides and then lighter areas towards the middle. So I decided to keep one area of my body leaning towards the dark side and the other side of my body leaning more towards the lighter areas. And I'm going to be hanging that onto my completed Sirocco that I already have so that I can go looking at it while I cut. But I'm doing this first so I can actually have a look. So I have my 2 front skirt pieces, the one that will go internally and the one that will go externally. So I have cut them out of my paper fabric, as you can see there. This is how I want it to look. This side of the body is lighter color, and so this side will be as well. That's the internal one. And then the external one was cut from the other extreme of the fabric. Remember on the selvages, there were the stripes. So that's what that is. I wanted it there. So I had to play around. Well, I wanted that stripe feature to be really visible there where it wraps. And you can see the darker areas go across the bodice and down the skirt. And then the lighter areas go across the other side of the body. You can see how this wrap that will come on the top matches the wrap there that the dress is going to have. And I think it's going to be a really cute dress. Now for the waistband, I'm just going to do the same. I'm going to start cutting the waistband from the darker areas of the fabric and then go off to the lighter so that it matches there and it doesn't look strange. On the back, I'm going to replicate this. The back bodice is just cut on the fold. Here you can see my vision is sort of coming to reality. I've just pinned my pattern pieces onto my Sirocco jumpsuit that's behind. And you can see one half of the bodice there has the darker areas, have the stripe to the side. The other side just goes off into the lighter colors. The bodice in there is already assembled and I'm doing the double waistband the same as I did in the original Sirocco jumpsuit. So I'm not going into detail. What I want to show you is how I'm putting on the skirt. I have sewn the side seams of the skirt first. So that's one there, it goes there. And that's the other one there. And those match the waistband seams right there. A little bit thick, a little bit bulky, but that's to be expected. And so this front bit here, the one that's going to be on the outer part, the one that's going to be visible, that's the one that gets pinned on first. But I'm going to interface this area with a 1-inch strip all the way down, and then I'm going to sew that down before I actually sew on the skirt. So once this part is pinned, then this flappy bit, the one that's going to go underneath, I'm making the dress sleeveless as always. I have trimmed a little bit out of the shoulder there to make it nice because it's supposed to have a sleeve and I don't want that. So I've just trimmed, you know, this little piece is what I put on the other armscye so that they're both the same, and I've shown you that multiple times. It's how I always do it, so that's just rubbish. I had a bit of a gaping on the armhole, and that's usual because there's supposed to be a sleeve there, but I never mind doing an armscye dart, and I do that by pinning it onto myself. You can see I've got it drawn on with a friction pen. Once I'm happy with the position and how much I'm taking out, I transfer that over to the other side and I have both darts ready to go. The way I'm going to finish this sleeveless armhole with this Ponte is different, and I usually adapt the method to the fabric. So I cut 2 strips of the same Ponte. This is the greatest stretch going horizontally, so with the same direction of the way I've cut the whole dress. It's 1 inch wide there by 20 inches in the length there, and that is enough to go all the way around the armscye. I've cut 2 of these, and on one of the sides I have serged it. As you can see, the other side is raw. The raw side is the side I'm going to attach to the armscye. I have the other one already pinned onto one side, so you can see underneath here is where I'm going to unite this, and it's just being pinned on the edge, right sides together, the raw side of that little strip to the dress, and the serged area is going to be how it's going to be finished inside. So I'm going to sew that with a 3/8 seam allowance, grade, clip, and then flip it under stitch, and then it's going to look like that. But because this is Ponte and bulky, serging the edge there and then top stitching is going to look just as neat. I have sewn this to the armscye. I've done it on the other side as well, and I've graded and clipped so that this can turn. Then I've done my narrow understitch there, and now I just have to fold this and top stitch. Now I have to point out, and I've mentioned it before, these little strips to finish the armholes don't need to be on the bias. This is stretch fabric, it's knit fabric, you don't need to do that. I hope that was fun to watch and easy to grasp what I wanted to do. I am not the type that will take the time to do this sort of thing, to plan projects, because I can usually just visualize what I want in my head. But when you're working with single layers, right and left, and a certain vision, it's so easy to get confused. So easy to go and cut a pattern piece flipped, or like cutting 2 left sides or 2 right sides. It's a mistake any one of us can make, and I'm no exception. I make those mistakes all the time. That's why for projects, when I'm cutting single layer, I go, you know, piece by piece, and I cut with the right side of the fabric up. I will even put the fabric on me, like on my body, and then put the pattern piece on top and pin it. And I do all those precautions because I don't want to mess up. And you know, you saw that I chose one side to be darker, one side to be lighter. This, you know, this throws off the white balance. Okay, so you know, it was a little process, but super fun to do. I always got good feedback from you when I used miniature pattern pieces to show how things were done, when in actual fact it was the only way I could show you, because I was working with huge piece of fabric, you know, extended, cutting single layers. There's no way I could have filmed that in a way that would have been attractive to watch. And plus I had a lot of fun cutting the little thing and printing the fake fabric. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed filming and making that. Without further ado, ta-da! This is my Sirocco jumpsuit bodice matched with the Olympia dress skirt from Love Notions. You can see that I've got the darker areas on one side coming down. I wanted this stripe thing to be a feature there, where this overlaps. Inside here, the other skirt piece reaches almost to the side seam, I would say about 1.5 inches from the waistband in. That's where it stops. I didn't want it to reach the whole other side, because then this area of the waistband will turn out super bulky, and it's not necessary. That's like enough coverage for your legs, and it's a Ponte, it's a heavy fabric, it's not going to blow up with the wind. I love the dress, I love it so much, and I know no one around me in this area is going to have a dress like that. I love the striking features of the print, that it's not uniform, that it's not the same everywhere. Now, one thing we can do in our home sewing that you won't see in ready to wear, you can choose to top stitch with colors that match if you're working with a print like this. So to top stitch down this armscye, I did that in black there so that it camouflages with the darker print. And here I did it with white. I sewed everything for this dress with a narrow zigzag that will allow stretch, except for the side seams of the skirt. It's not an area that is going to be tight or anything, because it's not a tight fitting skirt. Also the shoulder seams, I never do a zigzag stitch on the shoulder, because actually I don't want the shoulder to stretch and collapse, you know. With my first Sirocco jumpsuit, the red one that I've just shown you, I did a double waistband inside. I did the same here. I didn't go into detail because if you're interested in doing that, you can watch the previous video about the Sirocco. There's loads of construction there, how I assembled the band, the bodice, everything is there. But I think it's a great addition to the pattern. The pattern originally just has one waistband around, but that would make like the seams around your midsection really bulky and not that comfortable. So I do that. Here I am in the garden wearing my dress. You can see the features of the print are so different on one side. There are the stripes. At the back it's totally different, and that stripe in the middle I love. Look how white it is on the other side. It's like I'm wearing two separate dresses. I love the flow of the skirt. I think it's a perfect mesh for this type of fitted bodice. There is that waistband. I think it's super flattering. You can see I've matched the stripes there of the waistband. You can't really tell there's a waistband there, but it is there. A little bit of spinning, a bit of twirls. I love it. Up here you can see the coverage of the V crossover. I did modify that, as I mentioned before, so that it would give me a bit more coverage. Up close you can see there's no gaping in the neckline there, and the armscye is very close. There's lots of coverage there for that area of my body, with the help of that cheeky little armscye dart that I'm never shy to add on, because you know this wasn't drafted to be sleeveless. I think they're both equally good styles for me. They are the types I will wear. I would love to know your thoughts on cutting pattern pieces on the cross grain. Are you willing to sacrifice the stretch of a knit to put it the other way just for visual purposes? You know, sometimes with border prints and sometimes with stripes, we are willing to break the rules and just cut things the way they're not supposed to, just because we want them to look a certain way. In this case, I wasn't really keen to do that because I did need that greatest stretch going horizontally across my body so that I could get the bodice on. You know, there's no closures. There's significant negative ease around the waist. So I wasn't willing to do that, although I think it would have been visually super attractive to have cut it, to have stripes on the hem. If you comment there, I will always reply to you, so feel free to do that every single video. And why not spend more time on the channel looking at hundreds of videos that could give you some input and ideas for your own sewing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!